Oh. Okay. Next topic. Can you explain to me why the lover boy method is not infantilization of women?
How is it infantilizing somebody?
I'm from the future. This girl is gonna
Because
join.
an adult woman who is 18 years old should have the ability to have interactions how she chooses, and if she chooses to fall in love with the guy, move to his country, and then start doing what he tells her without the direct threat of violence or anything of that nature, and he's just purely manipulating her, it kind of leads to the idea that women are inferior because they can be manipulated by men, at least in my mind.
Do you think that scammers shouldn't be held accountable for scamming people, since the people that get scammed should know better?
If the people they're scamming should know better.
Yeah, like let's say,
Depends.
for instance, I contact grandma and I say, hey, I've got a kid, he's sick, can you please send me some money? He's a Nigerian prince. Like, should that guy get punished for scamming, since the grandma should be smart enough to know that a Nigerian prince probably isn't going to contact her?
As long as the person they're scamming, I don't know. I haven't thought about that one very much.
Well, no,
But
because there's this weird thing that's like focused on like people keep doing this with the sex trafficking shit. They go like, well, aren't we infantilizing? How are you infantilizing somebody for punishing a scammer? That's essentially what the sex trafficking thing is. As a guy said, I'll marry you, I love you, come be with me. And then the person goes to be with me, and they don't want to marry them, they don't love them, they're just using them for sex work and then taking money from it. That's all it is. Start and stop. There's no infantilization there. Like, did the woman like consent to it? Well, no. The woman consented to going and being with a guy that said he was in love with her and wanted to marry her, and then got conned into doing basically sex work. But I mean, that's the same as any scam. But I don't know why we would ever use this. Like, aren't you infantilizing the person by holding the scammer accountable? Technically, nobody should fall for almost any scam ever, unless people are pulling your info from some third-party site. But we would never say, like, aren't you infantilizing old people by holding scammers accountable? It doesn't make sense.
well, old people sometimes have diminished faculties, and mostly
It can be
what I'm
middle.
talking
Hold on,
about.
that's such a okay. Middle-aged people, any people, like anybody that gets scammed, you probably shouldn't get scammed, but you would still hold the scammer accountable.
I see where you're going with that. I'm more going towards the line of the difference between treatment of male and female. Do you ever think the lover boy method could be used against a male?
Yeah, theoretically it could. I don't see why not.
Theoretically, it can, but practically, do you think there's ever a situation where a man can be manipulated by a woman and it would hold up in court? Man manipulated by women for
I mean, don't
financial
women
gain.
get in trouble? Well, for financial gain, probably not. But that's because I don't think there's as big a market for men in like sex markets as there is for women.
Let's remove it from the sex market. Let's say.
Well, that's the whole point.
that
You
the-
only get the point about trafficking is to make money off the person. But if there's not as big a market for the person, then obviously no, right?
That's why I'm saying get rid of the sex part. We are talking about now a Bangladeshi factory worker who has like 40 different factories in Bangladesh. Do you think if they trafficked men to work in these factories through manipulation using the similar methods of the lover boy, that any type of penalty would be happening?
Possibly, sure. I mean, don't teachers get in trouble for seducing students when it's female teachers and male students? Like, that happens, no?
Yeah, it has happened, but I think even in that, the zeitgeist within society is that it's far more serious one direction versus the other direction.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't know if that's true. Listen. If you want to make the argument that like society is sexist, sure. But like, I don't know, like the specific thing about like trafficking. I don't know what like. We can make a broader point that like sometimes men get in more trouble than women for sex crimes. I mean, I might agree with you. I don't know what the broader point is you're trying to make though.
Just wondering if it's an infantilization of women, and in your opinion, it's 100% not an infantilization of women.
An infantilization, yeah, I would have to say, what is the infantilizing part?
The infantilizing part is the fact that these women have cell phones on them at all times. If they want to leave, it seems like they all can. Specifically with the Tate situation. Not saying that the Tates are innocent or guilty or that I hold an opinion on the matter. But it seems like those women all had cell phones at all times and had access to police, their families.
My understanding is that one time when they tried to go to the police, the 2 ladies working with the Tates literally got those, like, police reports basically destroyed. Number one. Number two, I don't know if they all had cell phones on them at all times, because a lot of the stuff that's leaked shows that, like, the women can't leave the house unaccompanied, for instance. It seems like cell phone privileges are things they had to earn by being loyal for some period of time. 3, we're back at this argument again, which I just don't know how to deal with it, where it seems like people think the only type of manipulation is locking somebody in a box, throwing them in a basement, and holding an AK-47 to their head. But I mean, there are plenty of other types, like prostitutes. Every single prostitute is free to walk the streets. She could just walk to a police station, right? Like, so is pimping not real? Like, most women that are in abusive relationships could just leave their husband. Like, they just, like, it's not like he's at home 24/7. They just walk out the door, take their kids and leave. Women, usually people even go back to abusive relationships even once they are free.
But even that, it seems like you're only talking about like a one-way situation.
Because
like the
typically,
women,
I mean, it could happen the other way, but I mean, in this particular case, it's more often than not, it's going to be a man manipulating a woman because of the dynamics at play. Because men tend to be the main buyers of sex. It's not women, so it doesn't really make sense that there'd be women pimping men. There's probably not as much money to be made there. Or for abusive relationships, especially physically abusive ones, I'm sure there are guys that go back to abusive relationships, but for physically abusive relationships, typically men can exert a lot more physical power or pressure on a woman than a woman can over a man. But I don't think any of this is showing like a disparity in like sentencing or an unfairness in the system, just like some biological realities in terms of the differences in how we play out. Like on average, men probably get in trouble for hurting women more than women get in trouble for hurting men, because men probably hurt women more because they do way more damage.
Yeah, okay. So you're saying that mostly the Loverboy method isn't an example of fanalizing women. It's just that in this particular instance, the target of this type of abuse is almost always women.
I think because of how the other markets play out. Yeah, I don't know how much money you would make trying to traffic men. I mean, actually, I'm sure there are probably young boys, right? Like, weren't boys on Epstein's Island or whatever?
Yeah.
So it didn't.
But I think there might be a slight difference in viewing of young people because they haven't hit puberty. So a child is kind of like almost universally a child. There's less difference between the two sexes, but once they hit puberty, then there's a big difference between the two sexes.
In general, that might be true, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for your opinion on that. What is your opinion on playing music as a kid?
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right, bye.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.